The Solaris shadow drifted through the dead zone of Sector K. 7 like a ghost in the void, her hull scarred, her engines silent, her crew holding their breath. Captain Elias Voss stared at the anomaly on his view screen. His coffee forgotten and cold. The ship ahead shouldn't exist.
No transponder.
No life signs. He just whispers on the comms. Play it again, he ordered. Static crackled. Then, a child's voice, trembling with fear. Please, they're coming. Terran's hands froze over the controls. That's impossible. There are no colonies out here. Elias thumbed his sidearm. Then who the hell are we hearing? The mystery ship's airlock hissed open. An invitation or a trap? Behind it, something darker moved in the void. Watching, waiting, and the children's whispers kept pleading, "Don't let them take us." By the time Elias realized the truth, it was already too late. The hunt had begun. Please wait. Before we start, tap that iCard button in the top right corner and smash that subscribe button. Right now, hit the notification bell so you're first in line when new stories land. Alright, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1. The morning sun filtered through the dusty windows of the rusty anchor, casting long shadows across the worn wooden floor. The air smelled of stale ale and fried fish, a combination that had long since seeped into the very walls of the tavern. At a corner table, a broad-shouldered man with a scar running down his cheek leaned forward, his voice a low growl. "You sure about this, Kale? That vault's guarded tighter than a dragon's hoard." Kale, a wiry rogue with a smirk that never quite left his lips, twirled a dagger between his fingers. "Relax, Garrick.
Ivekrektvers.
Remember the Duke's treasury." Garrick snorted. "Yeah, and we barely made it out alive. That hound of his nearly took my arm off." A third figure, a woman with fiery red hair and a longbow slung across her back, rolled her eyes. "Will you two stop bickering? We've got a job to do. Either we're in or we're out. No time for cold feet." Kale grinned. "Always the voice of reason, Lyra. That's why I keep you around." She shot him a glare. "You keep me around because I'm the only one who can put an arrow through a moving target at 50 paces. Garrick chuckled, rubbing his scar absent-mindedly. "She's got you there." The door creaked open, and a hush fell over the room as a cloaked figure stepped inside. The stranger's boots barely made a sound as they crossed the floor, stopping just short of their table. A gloved hand slid a rolled parchment across the wood. Kale raised an eyebrow. "You're late." The figure's voice was smooth, almost amused. Fashionably so. Lyra snatched the parchment before Kale could, unrolling it with a flick of her wrist. Her eyes scanned the contents, widening slightly. "This changes things." Garrick leaned in. "How so?" "Because," Kale said, his smirk fading into something sharper, "our little vault job just got a lot more interesting." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolled, its mournful sound echoing through the streets. The stranger tilted their head as if listening to something only they could hear. "Time's running out," they murmured. Lyra folded the parchment, her jaw set. "Then we'd better move." Garrick cracked his knuckles. "Guess we're doing this." Kale stood, flipping his dagger into the air and catching it with practiced ease. "Let's go steal ourselves a fortune." The cloaked figure melted back into the shadows as the three companions strode toward the door, the weight of the unknown pressing against their shoulders. The rusty anchor's patrons barely glanced up as they left, too absorbed in their troubles to notice the determined glint in their eyes. Outside, the city sprawled before them, a maze of cobblestones and secrets. Somewhere in its heart lay the vault, and with it, answers to questions they hadn't even thought to ask. Lyra adjusted her quiver, her voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't just about gold anymore, is it?" Kale's smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "When is it ever?" The bell tolled again, louder this time as if warning them to turn back. But they kept walking, their footsteps lost in the hum of the waking city. Chapter 2. The airlock sealed behind them with a hiss, the sound too loud in the tense silence. Elias kept his hand near his sidearm, his eyes scanning the dimly lit corridor of the refugee ship. The walls were scarred, the floor smeared with something dark, oil or maybe blood. The children huddled behind the woman in the armored suit, their wide, luminous eyes reflecting the emergency lights. "You stole them," Elias said, his voice low but sharp. He didn't move closer, but his stance made it clear he wasn't backing down. Kayla Vey didn't flinch. Her fingers flexed near the weapon at her hip, but she didn't draw. "I saved them," she corrected, her tone colder than the void outside the ship. "From what?" Taryn stepped forward, her scanner still blinking in her hand. "These are Raxian younglings. The entire species was declared wiped out after the Purge Wars." Kayla's jaw tightened. Declared, but not gone. She glanced down at the smallest child clinging to her leg, its tiny fingers gripping the fabric of her suit. "Someone missed a few." Elias exhaled through his nose. "And now that someone is after you." A flicker of something, anger, guilt, passed over Kayla's face before she locked it down. "They're not just after me." One of the children, bolder than the others, peeked out from behind Kayla. His voice was soft, hesitant. "Bad men hurt us. Make fire." Elias crouched down, keeping his movements slow. "What's your name, kid?" The child hesitated, then whispered, "Liren." Taryn knelt beside Elias, her voice gentle. "Liren, do you know why the bad men are chasing you?" Before the child could answer, Kayla cut in. "We don't have time for this." She turned to Elias, her gaze piercing. "You have a ship. We need to move. Now." Elias stood, crossing his arms. "Not until you tell me what's really going on. You expect me to risk my crew for a bunch of kids you won't even explain." Kayla's lips thinned. "Fine, you want the truth?" The purge wasn't just about extermination. It was about harvesting. Taryn's breath caught. "Harvesting what?" Kayla didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into a pouch at her belt and pulled out a small, glowing vial. Inside, a swirling blue liquid pulsed like a living thing. Elias stiffened. "Is that?" "Raxian neural fluid," Kayla confirmed. "The reason these children are worth more dead than alive." A sudden, deafening clang echoed through the ship, followed by the screech of metal buckling. The lights flickered, then died, plunging them into darkness. Taryn's scanner beeped frantically. "We've got company. 3 warships just locked onto us." Kayla shoved the vial back into her pouch and grabbed Liren's hand. "Told you we were out of time." Elias cursed under his breath. "Back to the shadow. Move." The children whimpered as Kayla herded them forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Stay close. Don't look back." Taryn sprinted ahead, tapping her wrist. "Calm. Jansen, prep the engines. We're leaving in 30 seconds or we're scrap metal." Elias fell into step beside Kayla as they ran. "You knew they'd find us." She didn't deny it. "I knew they'd never stop looking." Another impact rocked the ship, sending sparks raining from the ceiling. Elias grabbed Kayla's arm to steady her. "Why trust us? You don't even know me." Kayla met his eyes just for a second. "Because you didn't shoot first." Then the corridor behind them exploded. Elias didn't think. He shoved Kayla and the kids forward, shouting over the roar of flames. "Go!" They barely made it to the shadow before the refugee ship's hull split open behind them, the vacuum of space swallowing the fire in an instant. As the airlock sealed, Elias turned to Kayla, his chest heaving. "Now, start talking." She held his gaze unflinching. "Only if you promise not to turn this ship around." Taryn, still catching her breath, let out a disbelieving laugh. "Oh, this is gonna be fun." Chapter 3. The narrow alley reeked of damp stone and rotting garbage, the flickering torchlight casting jagged shadows against the walls. Kale pressed his back against the cold brick, his breath shallow as the heavy footsteps of the city guard echoed just around the corner. "Brilliant plan, Kale," Lyra hissed, her fingers tightening around the grip of her bow. "Break into the vault, you said. Easy gold, you said." Kale shot her a sideways glance. "To be fair, I did say the guards would be a problem. Garrick let out a low grumble, flexing his massive hands. Less talking, more not getting arrested. The footsteps grew louder. Kale held up a finger, waiting. Then, just as the guard's shadow stretched into view, he flicked a copper coin down the alley. It clattered against the cobblestones, rolling into the darkness. The guard paused. Who's there? Silence. Lyra mouthed. Really? A coin? Kale shrugged. Worked, didn't it? The guard took a hesitant step forward, his lantern swinging. Garrick moved like a storm, one meaty hand clamping over the man's mouth, while the other yanked him into the shadows. A quick thud and the guard slumped unconscious against the wall.
Lyra ehalet sharply.
Subtle. Garrick dusted off his hands. Didn't kill him. That's subtle for me. Kale peeked around the corner. Clear. Now, unless we want the whole garrison on us, we move now. They slipped through the maze of backstreets, the towering silhouette of the vault looming ahead. Its iron doors gleamed under the moonlight, the sigil of the Merchants' Guild etched into the metal.
Lyra frowned.
That's new. Kale squinted. Wards. Touch it. And every alarm in the district goes off. Garrick cracked his neck. So we don't touch it. Kale smirked and pulled a slender silver rod from his belt. Exactly. He knelt, probing the edges of the door until he found the hidden seam. With a soft click, a small panel slid open, revealing a complex lock.
Lyra leanedin.
You've done this before. Once or twice. His fingers danced over the mechanism, his ear pressed close. A series of faint clicks followed. Then the lock sprang open. Garrick grinned. Show off. Kale bowed slightly. I do my best. The door groaned as they pushed it open just enough to slip inside. The vault's interior was cavernous, stacked with chests, crates, and shelves of glittering treasures. But Kale's eyes locked onto one thing. A small, unassuming wooden box resting on a pedestal in the center. Lyra noticed it too. That's it. Kale nodded. That's what the stranger wanted. Garrick folded his arms. And we're just handing it over? Kale hesitated. Depends on what's inside. He reached for the box, then froze as a voice cut through the darkness. Ah, I was wondering when you'd arrive. A figure stepped into the dim light, their cloak pooling around them like a liquid shadow. The stranger from the tavern. Lyra's arrow was knocked and drawn in an instant. You set us up. The stranger chuckled.
No.
I simply ensured you'd be the ones to retrieve what I needed. Kale's grip tightened on his dagger. And why's that? Because, the stranger said, pulling back their hood to reveal piercing silver eyes. You're the only ones reckless enough to steal from the guild and survive. A beat of silence. Then Garrick sighed. Kale, I swear, if this turns into another dragon situation. Kale grinned. Oh, it's definitely going to be worse. The stranger's smile was sharp. Shall we find out? Somewhere above them, an alarm bell began to ring. Chapter. For the Shadow's engines groaned as the hyperspace jump tore through reality, the stars stretching into blinding streaks of light. Elias gripped the armrests of his command chair, his knuckles white. Tell me again why we're jumping blind into a sector that doesn't exist? Kayla stood rigid at the NAV console, her fingers flying over the controls. Because Elysian doesn't appear on any star chart. That's the point. Taryn shot her a skeptical look from the pilot's seat. And you just happen to have coordinates to a ghost planet? I told you, Kayla snapped. I've been there. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as the hyperdrive fluctuated. Elias swore under his breath. If we get atomized because of this. A child's voice piped up from the corner where the little Raxians huddled. We won't. Lirin, the boldest of them, stepped forward, his large eyes reflecting the emergency lights. Kayla knows the way. Elias raised an eyebrow. And you're suddenly an expert on interstellar navigation. Kid? Lirin blinked.
No.
But I know she's never wrong. Kayla's lips twitched, almost a smile, before she turned back to the console. 5 seconds to reversion. The shadow lurched as it dropped out of hyperspace, the sudden deceleration pressing everyone forward against their restraints. For a terrifying moment, the view screen showed only blackness. Then, like a phantom emerging from the dark, a planet appeared. Terran's breath caught. Holy hell, it's real. Elysian hung in space like a blue-green jewel, its atmosphere swirling with auroras no natural planet should have. Kayla exhaled sharply, her shoulders relaxing for the first time since they'd met. Told you. Elias leaned forward, studying the scanners.
No orbital defenses. Nos chips.
Just silence. He glanced at Kayla. Too quiet. Before she could answer, the proximity alarm shrieked. Terran's hands flew over the controls. We've got company. Same warships, right on our tail. Elias slammed a fist on the comm. Jansen. Get those shields back up now. Kayla's voice cut through the chaos. They tracked us through the jump. That's impossible unless they had help. Terran finished, shooting her a sharp look. Kayla met her gaze, unflinching. It wasn't me. The shadow rocked as the first torpedo hit, sending sparks erupting from an overhead panel. Elias grabbed Kayla's arm, his voice a growl. Then who? One of the children, smaller than Liren, her voice barely a whisper, spoke up. The bad men hear us. When we're scared. A chill ran down Elias's spine. What does that mean? Kayla's face darkened. It means we're out of time. She turned to Terran. Get us into the atmosphere. There's a landing site. Coordinates uploading now. Terran didn't hesitate, her hands steady on the controls as the shadow dove toward the planet. The warships followed, their weapons charging for another volley. Elias gripped the back of Terran's seat. Tell me you've got a plan beyond run and hope. Kayla checked her rifle, her movements were precise. Land. Get the children to safety. Then blow the warships out of the sky. Terran barked a laugh. Simple. I like it. Another impact shook the ship. The lights flickered, then died, leaving only the red glow of emergency panels. In the dim light, Elias caught Kayla's eye. You sure about this? She held his gaze, unflinching.
No.
But it's the only play we've got. The shadow pierced the atmosphere, flames licking at its hull as Elysian's surface rushed up to meet them. Somewhere below, answers waited, and behind them, death followed. Chapter 5. The storm outside the abandoned lighthouse howled like a wounded beast, rain lashing against the cracked windows as thunder rattled the old stone walls. Kale tossed another broken chair onto the struggling fire, sending up a shower of sparks. Remind me again why we're hiding in the most obvious place possible? Lyra muttered, wringing rainwater from her hair. Garrick, busy barricading the door with a heavy oak table, grunted. Because the guilds got every dock and tavern from here to the capital locked down. Even they wouldn't be stupid enough to check a crumbling lighthouse in a storm. Kale smirked. Also, dramatic effect. Lyra rolled her eyes. Of course, priorities. The stranger, now revealed as a silver-eyed woman named Saris, leaned against the far wall, watching them with quiet amusement. The wooden box from the vault sat unopened on the floor between them. Garrick eyed it like it might sprout fangs. We nearly got skewered for that thing. You gonna tell us what's inside? Or do we have to guess? Ceres tilted her head. Would you believe me if I said it was the key to stopping a war? Kale snorted. Try again. A map to buried treasure? Lyra crossed her arms. War was more believable. Sirius sighed and knelt, flipping the box open with a deft motion. Inside lay a single, jagged shard of black stone, its surface swirling with veins of crimson light. The air around it hummed, thick and heavy. Garrick took an involuntary step back. That was in the guild's vault? Kale's smirk vanished. That's a fragment of the obsidian vein. Lyra's breath caught. The what? The weapon that shattered the last kingdom, Saris said softly. The guild's been collecting the pieces, and they're very close to having them all. A bolt of lightning struck nearby, illuminating the room in stark white light. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Kale let out a low whistle. So, just to be clear, We accidentally stole an apocalyptic artifact from the most powerful organization on the continent? Saris nodded. Congratulations. Garrick dragged a hand down his face. I hate working with you, Kale. Lyra, however, was still staring at the shard. If the guild's after this, why did you want it? Saris's silver eyes gleamed. Because some of us remember what happened last time the vein was whole. And I'd rather not see the world burn again. Another crash of thunder. The fire sputtered, casting long, twisting shadows across the walls. Kale exhaled sharply. All right, new plan. We don't just run. We make sure nobody gets their hands on the rest of these shards. Garrick groaned. Oh, now we're heroes? Reluctantly, Lyra muttered. Kale grinned, though it lacked its usual mischief. Think of it as profitable heroism. Ceres arched a brow. There's no gold in this. Yet. Outside, the storm raged on. But beneath the lighthouse, beneath the weight of what they now carried, something darker stirred. Lyra shivered, though not from the cold. Where do we even start? Ceres closed the box with a quiet click. With the one person who knows where the other fragments are hidden. Kale's stomach dropped. Oh no. Garrick caught on a second later. No. Saris smiled. The Mage Queen of the Shattered Spires. Lyra threw her hands up. Perfect. Just perfect. Next, you'll tell us she's your ex. Saris's smile widened. Kale groaned. Why do I even ask? The fire crackled, the only sound in the sudden, heavy silence. Somewhere far below, the waves crashed against the rocks, and the hunt began. Chapter 6. The shadow screamed through Elysian's atmosphere, trailing smoke and fire like a dying comet. Elias gripped the armrests of his command chair as the ship bucked violently. Terran. Status. Shields at 12%. Terran's hands flew across the controls, her voice tight. Engines are failing and we've got 2 warships still on our tail. Kayla strapped the last of the children into crash harnesses near the escape pod. We need to land now or we're not landing at all. Elias glanced at the scanner. There. That clearing ahead. Can you make it? Terran gritted her teeth. I can make it. Hold on to something. The ship lurched as she pulled up at the last second, skimming treetops before slamming into the ground with a deafening crunch. The impact threw Elias forward, his harness digging into his shoulders. For a terrifying moment, everything was noise and chaos. Then silence. Elias coughed, blinking smoke from his eyes. Everyone alive? Terran groaned, rubbing her temple. Barely. Kayla was already moving, unstrapping the wide-eyed children. We have maybe 3 minutes before those ships find our crash site. Elias unclipped his harness and grabbed his rifle. Then we move fast. Terran, get the kids to the pod. A thunderous boom cut him off as the first warship descended through the clouds, its weapons glowing ominously. Kayla cursed. Too late. The second warship appeared moments later, flanking the first. Their comm crackled to life. Surrender the Raxians and you will not be harmed. The voice was cold and a mechanical. Terran snorted. Yeah, because that's worked out so well for everyone else. Elias checked his rifle's charge. Kayla, any brilliant last-minute plans? She ejected the spent power cell from her weapon and slammed in a fresh one. I'll hold them off. You get the children to the coordinates I gave you. Elias grabbed her arm. Like hell. We fight together. Kayla met his gaze, her expression unreadable. They're not after you, Elias. Just me and the children. Liren tugged at Elias's sleeve. She's right, but you can still help. Another explosion rocked the ship as the warships opened fire. Terran grabbed 2 of the smaller children. We're out of time for debates. Elias made a decision. Terran, take the kids and go. Kayla and I will cover you. Terran hesitated only a second before nodding. Try not to die. As Terran herded the children toward the escape pod, Elias and Kayla took up positions at the shattered viewport. The warships were deploying troops, dozens of armored soldiers marching toward the downed shadow. Kayla took careful aim. You should have gone with them. Elias sighted down his rifle. And miss all the fun? She actually smiled at that, a quick, fierce thing before firing the first shot. The lead soldier dropped. Chaos erupted as the others scattered for cover. Elias picked off 2 more. So what's the real reason they want these kids so badly? Kayla ducked as return fire peppered their position. I told you. Yeah, neural fluid or whatever. But there's more to it. Elias risked a glance at her. Isn't there? For a moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, they're not just weapons. They're the key to something much worse. Before she could explain, a massive explosion tore through the Shadow's hull. The force threw Elias backward, his head slamming against the deck. His vision swam as smoke filled the cabin. Through the haze, he saw Kayla staggering to her feet, blood streaking her face. The warships were moving in for the kill. Then, impossibly, a new sound cut through the chaos. A deep, resonant hum that made the ground tremble. The warships suddenly veered away, their weapons powering down. Elias dragged himself up. What the hell? Kayla's eyes widened. They're here. Who's here? But she didn't answer. The last thing Elias saw before the world went black was the sky splitting open, and something enormous descending from the clouds. Chapter 7. The final piece of the obsidian vein pulsed in Kale's palm, its dark energy writhing like a living thing. The cavern beneath the shattered spires trembled, dust shaking loose from the ceiling as the ancient ritual circle beneath their feet flared to life. Tell me again why I'm the one holding the cursed rock? Kale shouted over the rising hum of magic. Because you've got the best reflexes. Lyra knocked an arrow, her eyes locked on the cavern entrance where guild enforcers were already pouring in. Garrick cracked his knuckles, standing between them and the approaching threat. And because if it does explode, we'd all miss your pretty face the least. Ceres, her silver eyes glowing with borrowed power, traced another rune into the air. Focus. The ritual won't hold much longer. Kale glanced down at the shard. So what's the plan? Toss this thing into the abyss and hope it doesn't doom us all. Basically, Sarah snapped. A crossbow bolt whizzed past Kale's ear, embedding itself in the wall behind him. Would appreciate a little urgency. Lyra loosed an arrow, and a guild soldier crumpled. Garrick roared as he charged, plowing through 2 attackers like they were made of parchment. Just do it, Kale. Kale took a deep breath. All right, you wretched thing. Time to go where no one can abuse your world-ending power ever again. He hurled the shard into the center of the ritual circle. The moment it left his fingers, time seemed to stutter. The shard hung suspended for a heartbeat. Then, with a deafening crack, it shattered into 1,000 glittering fragments. The explosion of force sent them all flying. Kale hit the ground hard, rolling to a stop against Garrick's bulk. Ow! You're welcome, Garrick grunted, shoving him off. The cavern fell eerily silent. The remaining guild enforcers staggered, their weapons slipping from their hands as the obsidian vein's influence evaporated. Lyra sat up slowly, blinking at the dissipating energy. Did that actually work? Saris, breathing heavily, managed a tired smirk. Against all odds? Yes. Kale groaned, flopping onto his back. Great. Can we never do that again? Garrick hauled him to his feet. Seconded. The Mage Queen's voice echoed from the cavern entrance, icy and amused. I did warn you it would be messy. Kale pointed at her. You said it would be theoretically messy. There's a difference. Ceres sighed, brushing dust off her cloak. It's over. The vein is gone. The guild's power is broken. Lyra slung her bow over her shoulder. So what now? Garrick crossed his arms. I vote for a very long nap. Kale grinned, that familiar mischief creeping back into his expression. Or, we could see what other world-ending relics are lying around. Lyra and Garrick groaned in unison. Saris shook her head, but her lips quirked. You're impossible. Kale winked. And yet, you keep me around. Above them, the first rays of dawn broke through the cracks in the cavern ceiling, painting the worn stone in gold. Somewhere in the distance, a bird sang. Garrick clapped Kale on the shoulder, hard enough to make him stumble. Drinks first. Then we discuss future bad decisions.
Lira simirket.
I'll believe that when I see it. And with that, the four of them walked out of the cavern. Battered, bruised, and somehow improbably alive. The world, for now, was safe. But adventure, that was just getting started. And that was the end of the story. Comment below if you want the next chapter, and hit that like button. Please subscribe, turn on the bell, and as always, keep the last light burning.